Hi, I'm Matt Longley and I'm a senior consultant at Finch Consulting.
Hi, I'm Julia Thomas. I'm one of the joint heads of legal at Finch Consulting.
And today we're going to talk about stress in the workplace and the management of stress and the duty of care that companies have for stress in the workplace.
That's right.
So stress has become one of the most significant issues that cause illness in the workplace. Stress is really when people experience feelings that are over their ability to cope with pressure that gets put on them in the workplace. And something like 45% of the days are lost in the UK are due to stress in the workplace, which has become a bit of an issue for the health and safety executive.
Yes, I think you're right there, Matt. What we've got to remember is stress is quite a subjective thing. So what one person may be able to cope with may not necessarily be the same for someone else. So I could run around and cope with running 100 cases at one point, but my colleague who sits next to me may not necessarily be able to do that. So it's quite subjective, and I think that duty holders, employers need to be alive to the fact that work priorities need to be managed appropriately depending on the employee's characteristics.
Yeah, there's obviously different people feel different things, and it can actually, when it's compounded with things that might be happening at home as well, and in relationships or with financial pressures, etc., then it can tip people over the edge and into mental health issues such as anxiety or depression further on down the line. So they do need to have structures in place to enable them to spot signs of people having too much stress or being overstressed, and then work back from there and try and help those people take away the stress that they're feeling either at home or especially in the workplace, because they can all compound together and create a significant issue.
Yeah. So what sort of things? I know there's some management standards. So what other things that the management standards cover?
Yeah, so the HSE put out 6 management standards probably about 15 years ago now, but they cover what demands are you putting on your employee, so what time are they working, how long are they working, what control do they have over their work, so are they able to set what times they work or set how they do a particular job, what support do you give them as a workplace, so are they able to find help from other places or resources that they can use to help them do their job, or if they are struggling, what relationships people have in work, so is there a culture of bullying and harassment, are they having a good relationship with their other colleagues, and then there's how do you manage change in the workplace. That's quite an important one. So that if you're having if there's a restructure, how do you communicate that? How do you consult with people? And how do you actually manage the stress that might put people under? And then the final one is around do people understand their job role? So is their job role specified correctly? Do they understand what their job role is? And do other people around them in the organisation actually understand that as well? Yeah. Which is quite often a problem because people don't know where they fit in, or somebody further on down the line actually goes to somebody and asks them for things that aren't their job. So then they get worried. And that happens quite a lot.
I think it does. And it normally happens where either someone's left the organisation, so their job's been divvied up in between like 3 or 4 people, and you might be told, oh, actually you only need to do that for 5 weeks while we recruit someone else, and then it goes to 10 weeks, and then people take on more and more, and their job role becomes a lot wider. Not necessarily what's in the job description, it becomes undefined, as I call it. And they feel that they have to do it to help everyone else out. They don't want to be the person that moans because everyone else seems to be coping. And it's about, like you said, having that open culture where they can come and say, hold on a moment, this is not working. Yeah, I need some help.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them interlink as well. So the demands you put on people might mean that if they can't work how they want to, they can't control their work and how they do their work. So a lot of them interlink, don't they? So it's quite an issue. So what we've kind of said is that there's a problem sometimes in organisations because they don't actually do anything to manage the stress. You can do stress risk assessments, which you can use those 6 management standard hazards, really the demands, control, support, etc. Then you can put them into risk assessment and actually put controls in place. And that's usually done by a line manager working with the employee.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's an issue then if the line manager is the person who's causing the problem in the
That's
first
right.
place. So,
If you've got a line manager where you go to them and say, actually, I'm really stressed, or I can't quite make that deadline, and they say, all tough, basically you need to suck it up and carry on, it kind of prevents you from going back to them, even if you feel really, really bad, or you get to a stage where you actually can't cope. And that's where people just don't come into work. They start having the sick days and the time off and the unauthorised absences. I think what happens is a lot of people, rather than think, why is that person off all the time? You just performance manage them and say, well, you're not here, you're not doing your job. So that's it. That's now the issue, rather than doing a root cause analysis of why is that person off? Why has that become an issue when they've been a high performer all the way through their employment with them?
Yeah, and quite often people will say that they're going off with a bad back rather than say that they've got stress or that's developed into a mental health condition.
I think it's still seen as something that you don't want to talk about, and no one wants stress on their record.
There's been a few studies that have come out in the last few months. So one of them was done by the Film and TV Charity, which showed in that particular industry where there is no structure and no support, that the stress levels and mental health issues were even higher than the general population. So they were looking at something like 87% of the people who responded to the survey had suffered a mental health issue, probably due to stress at work, whereas the normal population it's about 66%. A lot of people in those industries are freelance or self-employed, which then sort of you can extrapolate that out perhaps to other industries such as the rail industry, where people are again work as agency workers at weekends, or even then to Uber drivers or to other gig economy sectors. So we're trying to look at how much of a duty of care companies have to those people who they employ over a period of time as freelancers, and how does the law kind of fit in with that as well as your standard employees? Yeah,
I think it fits in with everyone, and I think the concept of well-being has developed. So everyone talks about the Health and Safety at Work Act, and everyone knows it's a duty to protect your employees and safeguard their health, safety and welfare. I think there's been a perception that welfare just meant providing them with toilets or hot water and coffee, maybe some pastries, an odd Christmas party. But actually, welfare does include well-being and people's mental well-being. And I think it's a good thing is the concept has developed over the years, and that's been recognised, obviously, through the development of the HSE standards, because the awareness, because people are now talking more freely about mental health issues and will put their hands up and say, actually, I am stressed. I can't cope. I do need some support. I need some counselling. I need some time out away from my job. So that has helped to raise awareness. And I think that employers are becoming more alive to the issue, because at some point, I think HSE will prosecute. The management standards are there. They're not there for no reason. Yeah. They will be used at some point as a basis for a prosecution. It is in the HSE's plans for the next year that they will prosecute potentially if they find that there are a number of workers who are exposed to ill health.
Where there's a pattern of them having a problem.
Yeah. So, I think before it was, okay, well, if people are stressed, stress is a good thing, and stress meant you can't cope with your job. I think we need to stand up more and say, actually, stress can be a good thing. A little bit of stress. I thrive on a little bit of stress. Yeah. Everyone does. It can make you more productive. But it's when that stress becomes dangerous and tips you over a level where you can no longer perform as you have done. That's when the issue needs to be taken on board and something needs to be done about it.
And if that's systematic within a business, then there's an issue, isn't there? Because there are significant benefits to productivity, to actually
Of
managing
course.
stress in the workplace, aren't there? So
Of course.
there's lots of
Saves
studies.
you loads of money.
Yeah, there's been lots of people aren't performing well enough,
Yeah.
and stress is the reason. Then there's got to be an economic benefit to actually improving how people are working. And if stress is one of those things that you can handle and deal with, then it should be good for your business.
Well, that's it. Because if you think about the amount of time it takes to recruit somebody, and then the cost involved with interviews, paying maybe temporary staff to come in and do someone's job, training other people who may be in your organisation to do the job of someone who's off on long-term stress or long-term sick, it actually is very beneficial to actually manage the problem before it becomes a problem. Prevention is better than cure, as they say.
So there's other things as well, isn't there? So it's actually building. Most places will have a health and safety management system, so you can build stress and mental health into those management systems as well as just physical safety, because the two are linked. I think quite often you see people having physical issues prior to them going off with a mental health issue.
Well, that's
and
it.
Stress. So if you build the two together, then you can structure it properly and have people there to spot it.
Yeah, and have that safe workplace we're all trying to
Exactly.
maintain.
Yes.
In short, what would you say employers need to do to manage people's well-being?
I think they need to look at kind of having, there's probably 4 things they need to do. Firstly, they need to think about how they prevent issues occurring in the workplace. They need to then work out how they're going to intervene if somebody does have an issue in the workplace. They need to then work out what do they do if somebody has had an issue in the workplace and they come back to work, so building a resilience side to whatever they're doing. Plus they need to measure. So they need to understand what issues they do have in the workplace and whether they can come back, whether anything that they've done has actually helped and improved what they're doing. Intervention is one that they kind of have to put in first, because if people are struggling, then they'll need places to support them. So there's lots of things around support. So there's mental health first aid, there's help from Time to Talk, there's all sorts of things like that. Then the prevention side is doing the risk assessments, it's building awareness, training people.
Having that open working culture.
Open working culture. Making sure that they understand what they're doing, and change your culture, building policies, that sort of stuff. Don't want too many policies in the workplace, because you get one for everything, but at least understand. No one ever reads all of them. And then resilient is having things like you said, the buddy system, or having somebody mentor somebody back into the workplace, or understanding how your workforce is one of the main things that's there, and that will bring you into line with you've actually considered it, and therefore if the HSE did come calling and you have had people off with stress, you've done something about it and have tried to work on it so that you don't get a case going to prosecute people. So
that's true. Your workforce is your main asset, so take care of it just as you would a piece of machinery or anything else.
And a recent report by Deloitte showed that if every £1 you spend on stress management and mental health awareness, you get £5 back in increased productivity and some of the costs we talked about, recruitment costs and retention costs. Because that's what happens is if people don't like working there, they leave. They either go off sick or they leave. And that's a struggle.
So, you maintain your profit.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.